Hello, welcome back to the penultimate episode of our first series of Propaganda, the property podcast brought to you by Stanford Sales and Lettings. I'm Jack, manager of our Catford office. As always, I'm joined by our two directors, Alex, who manages our Hither Green branch, and James, who runs our Forest Hill branch. In today's chat, we're going to be having a little gander at the problems with buying and selling property in England and Wales, and whether it's time to look for a change. But before that, we are obviously now into the last month of the first quarter, knocking on the door of spring. Have you guys seen any evidence yet of the Great Recession of 2023 that was predicted?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. It's actually been quite interesting. So one of the things that I've been sort of talking about to the guys in the office is we have been busier in the first 2 months of this year than we were in the first 2 months of 2022 and 2021.
Yeah.
Now, you can look at it in a few different ways. Arguably, we had slightly more instructions available for people to view at the start of this year than we did then. But actually, in terms of where offers are being agreed at, in terms of people through the doors, it's been a positive start, all things considered. The big change has been we're not doing the same level of viewings that we were doing sort of summer of last year, where you take 20 people around to see one property, you'd end up with 5 offers. You know, those days are...
Don't you think that's nicer, though?
Yeah,
now?
Thankfully behind us.
Yeah.
You know, I much prefer this sort of market because it's just a nicer market to be involved in. It's nicer if you're a purchaser. It's also nicer if you're a seller because, you know, it's all well and good having 20 people through the door of your place, but if you're buying onward, you become one of those 20 people on the next place. And you're in a chain, which then, you know, puts you on the back foot in that kind of market where you're competing with people who are chain free and cash and all the rest of it. So it's actually quite a nice market, I think, at the moment.
We've seen a pattern start to form. All of our offers are coming in 3 weeks after they've been listed. So rather than this intent, so viewings are coming in, but then we've got second viewings working back, and actually everything has been just 3 weeks, which is...
That's what I said to you last week, didn't I? I reckon just because you've had loads of stuff that went on like 3 weeks, a month
wrong
ago.
time limit, yeah. I mean, our area, it's always hard, isn't it, where we are. Hither Green is such an on-off area. It's either dead or it's just mad. And so it's kind of when that happens, and it seems to happen a bit in January, quite a bit, but I wouldn't really take that as a pattern for everyone. Yeah, I don't know. It's
a bit more difficult where you are.
You just never really know. Yeah, you don't know until it's happened, and then it's just like full blown
all of a sudden.
Yeah, but no, it's not. It's not as bad. The offers are not, obviously they're not as strong. Most things are a decent level, but they're nowhere near, I guess, where we were at the peak of last year. I say nowhere near 5%. We've said it before.
Yeah, I think
the
other nice thing is interest rates obviously coming down over this period has meant, you know, people who were looking last year at kind of 6.5% mortgage rates.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates coming down.
Say the interest rates actually got up.
Yeah. So the interest rate has increased over this period, but actually mortgage rates have dropped. So if you were looking at buying November last year, for example, and you were looking at an average rate of about 6.5%, actually now you can, if you want, get a mortgage with a rate of less than 4%, which is below base. So I think that's kind of motivated buyers in some respect, particularly if you are looking at what it was only a couple of months ago and going, you know, saving the best part of 2.5% now. It's made things a lot more affordable.
In such a short space of time. I didn't expect it to be like that at all.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I just figured that the reductions would have come middle to end of the year once things have really been moving on, and the base rate might have stopped kind of going up and up. But actually, it was almost immediate. Yes. Which is always going to happen. Lenders at the beginning of the year, we always said at the back end of last year that once they reset their target for the year, lending will become free. It's like more free flowing, and they'll need to do it. But yeah, the change is pretty rapid.
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realise is that lenders have a target, basically a cash amount that they need to be lending to people each year, and it resets in January. So the interesting thing that happened last year, a lot of the blame for the increase in mortgage rates was obviously put on the mini budget, which is in part fair, but actually over and above that, for the majority of high street lenders, they'd already hit their targets for the year in terms of what they needed to be lending at that point. So they were able to have their cake and eat it. They were able to increase the mortgage rates arguably as a result of the risks, but they didn't need to. They'd already hit those targets.
It's kind of a case of we'll lend it to you, but this is the rate and take it or leave it.
Yeah. But kind of come January, it will reset. So they've had to become more competitive because the applications are slightly lower than what they were last year. And they're going to be looking at kind of the next 12 months and going, we need to make sure we're hitting our targets. And if they're not on track to do that, the easiest way of generating more business and more mortgage applications is make mortgages more affordable. So that's what they'll do. And that's why you're able to get mortgages at less than what the current base rate is now.
So do you think in a slower market, it's better to buy early in the year then? Buy that?
Potentially.
I was going to say, I'll renew my mortgage in January next year then. Just get it nice early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends, doesn't it?
Depends what the rates are doing, because it's all relative to what's going on with the base rate. The last few years, probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but the base rate's going up and you're saying mortgage rates are going down.
What I'm saying, the last couple of years, though, when interest rates have just remained the same, it's not really mattered when you do it, because interest rates have just been interest rates. Yeah. It's only because they've been going up and the banks have then sort of, jumped up with them that they're actually looking for them to be more competitive. When they were 1.5% to 2%, it didn't really matter. That's what the rate was. So it didn't really change as much. I guess more products come out at the beginning part of the year. Would you say more?
But it also depends, doesn't it? Because actually, if in the early part of the year, actually everything's looking okay, they won't necessarily make any adjustments. And it could, coming towards summer, end of summer, if they're not on track, all of a sudden rates might get slashed in order to get more applications processed. So it's difficult to say.
No point trying to second guess it, yeah.
No, again, it comes back to what we've always said. If you want to buy.
The reason I wanted to get into this today with you guys is I'm sure you've probably seen it. In 2022, the Office of National Statistics estimated that nearly £1 billion was wasted on aborted sales in the UK, and more than 30% of property transactions that went under offer essentially fell through. So my question to you guys would be, does that confirm that the system is broken?
Massive question, but I wouldn't say necessarily it's broken. I think the third of the 30% of sales falling through, you have to take into account a lot of that. It could be problems, could be poor management of the sales. So it's not just all, I guess, based around the system that we have. I think the cost that...
Well, you could argue, yeah, it is.
To some degree, yeah, but okay, we'll remove that. It's more the cost that's incurred, because actually there aren't any penalties for withdrawing from purchases or sales not completing to purchasers and vendors. So it doesn't matter what side of the process you're on. If a vendor just decides to withdraw in last minute because they've had a change of heart, no cost is recovered by the buyer. So that's just all money gone. Solicitor fees, surveyors, mortgage applications. Bear in mind, they've probably then been checked and had a hard search go through on their credit file. So it's kind of all, there's nothing really positive that comes from it. You might say in another sense, if it was...
So does it need changing?
I don't know. I've always said some sort of financial security for either side. So like where there's some sort of penalty for withdrawing. I think the only thing that you would say, people start putting deposits down on properties before they purchase. There's always going to be a valid reason for someone to withdraw. But what then if I bought
okay, fine, I'm going to go and buy that property. There's something drastically wrong with it, or some personal situation happens. I've then got to withdraw, and you're penalising me.
Well, that's what I mean. And that's why we've had vendors in the past who've had maybe a bad experience once or twice. And they say, look, I want to get the buyer to put a deposit down. One, you can't do it because we don't do it. So you just be the outlier and the buyer be put off. But two, there's always a valid reason. It's a hard one. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, because yes, people lose money completely out of no choice when people back out. And it can be at the last minute. So, not just the financial implication, but like the physical, mental, emotional, the kind of toll it takes. But how do you sort that out? I don't know. I don't think there's a straight answer. I don't have an answer for it. I think some sort of penalty would be worthwhile, but how do you put that in a contract? I don't know. It's the honest answer.
I think the main issue for me is the lack of certainty for both sides. If you think about it from the vendor's point of view and you've just sold your home, you're stressing about the fact that is that buyer going to see it through to exchange? And from the buyer's point of view, you're also stressing about, is the vendor going to move? Is it all going to go through? Will they change their mind? So I think the big issue is just that peace of mind, that comfort that in any other sort of walk of life or any other contractual situation, you tend not to have. I've always found it bizarre that from the property point of view, it seems to circumnavigate contractual law, because essentially in order for a contract to be formed, you need to have an agreement to sale and purchase. You need to have an intention contractually to form a contract, and you need a consideration. Well, when someone
You need
offers
a date as well, don't you?
on no, dates to do with execution of a contract.
Thought it was being clever.
No, you are. But those are the three principles of forming a contract. So which we do on a daily basis in terms of negotiating offers. Now, I understand the reasons why it's not as simple as that, but the problem is that doesn't actually help the people who are involved in it, who are buying and selling, because at the end of the day, they have no security. There is nothing contractual in terms of purchasing and selling a property until you've exchanged those contracts. So I think the core issues I feel that we have with the way we do things in England and Wales is the lack of uncertainty. And for people who, like ourselves, who have kids, if we're moving for schools, for example, there's certain deadlines that have to be hit to ensure that actually you are registered in your new home so that you can get your children into the school that you want to get them into. There'll be people who are moving abroad for jobs that, are in the process of selling. And I just think there is potentially something that could be done with our industry to make it a little bit more secure for both sides. That's what I would like to see some changes.
What though?
But the main reason that you don't know is because no one's had a survey, no one's seen a lease, seen a title plan, or raised any questions or found anything out until you agree a figure. So I come and see your house today and I make you an offer and you accept it. Well, great. Now we'll get the solicitor involved. And now we'll spend the next 2 months unraveling all of that information. And at any point, I could look at that and say, oh, I don't like that, or this doesn't, this survey's not good. Whereas the difference in somewhere like Scotland, which have a completely different process the way that we do it, is you get the information up front. So I guess in some sense, it's like going to an auction. When you go to an auction, you're pre-prepared because you've had the pre-pack. You know what you're getting, and it's almost kind of sold as seen. In Scotland, vendors provide the survey. Vendors give you the information at the beginning. So you have, I guess, far more, I don't know, you have more to go on, right? Your decision is based on facts rather than sort of a handshake to the point where it's just a pre-agreement before we look at the facts.
Weirdly, over there, you have solicitors that also act as estate agents. So there are some solicitors that will market properties as part of their service. So it is very different to what we do here in that way. But normally what happens is as the vendor, you will have the title checked and searches ordered by your solicitor before you've even gone on the market. So the stuff that we get coming up where it's like, oh, there's, it's a defective title or whatever, that's already been dealt with. So from that point of view, actually, there is some real benefits to their system. The problem, and I think this is a bigger issue than people realise, is before you go to market, you have to do what's called the home report, which is 3 documents. The one that Alex mentioned, which is basically a home survey that the vendor does. You've got the EPC, which we all know about, which is the Energy Performance Certificate, which even in England and Wales, same thing. Yeah. You have to have one of those in order to bring the property to market. And the third thing is the property questionnaire, which a good estate agent should be doing over here anyway. We do it and have quite a comprehensive questionnaire, but you don't have to over here. Now, the problem with that is that generally costs about 500 quid to put all of that together. So if you're a vendor who's thinking about selling, but not yet quite made the decision or you're unsure, I think you could quite easily be put off of the move
the cost
because of that outlay. So what you're actually doing by charging the seller before you've even looked at getting the property on the market, there are some people
possibilities.
Right. There are some people that put off by spending 75 quid on EPC.
Yeah.
So to have this kind of initial outlay, there's a lot of properties that potentially could come to market that wouldn't as a result of that. So I'm wary of that side of things in terms of what that could do to restrict instructions. But certainly in the initial part, I think it's a good idea that the titles are checked, searches are ordered in advance, because can you imagine how many weeks that would save us of dealing with?
This is, that's what I was going to say. The searches are just that huge delay. I don't understand why those things aren't sorted before. I think that would be the best thing, regardless of this penalty left, who pays what, kind of penalties to each person if they withdraw. There's so many things that you could do very simply in our system, and that is just getting things ordered early, having time, making sure they're done at particular points, so actually they're just ready, and it would speed the whole thing up. It might not save cost necessarily, but the time.
What? So, yeah, I suppose I'm thinking, what would an estate agent do up there then?
Well,
don't
the
get me
estate
wrong, we've
agent's
got to
going to
sell
market
it,
the
get the
property,
people in,
negotiate the
market.
offer.
I would say we make not make our money. Our fee is earned, in my opinion, actually after it goes under offer. And don't get me wrong, we do great marketing,
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
the
the value of the
viewings.
service is in that 3 months it takes you to get things
100%.
through. Yeah.
I mean, given the problems we deal with, yeah, absolutely.
I'd be interested to know what the average fee in Scotland is, whether they charge
Similar.
lesser or similar.
Yeah, similar. It's anywhere from kind of 1% to 3.5%.
Yeah.
So, which is very similar to here, depending on the agent, the location, all the rest of it.
I guess they still have their place. You don't know the complexities. We don't know it that well. Who knows what happens in the 6 to 8 weeks after in terms of issues to be sorted. I don't know, further surveys. Maybe they're obviously doing a lot of the groundwork at the beginning with the vendor with the surveys and helping them out sort things out before it reaches the point at which it goes to market.
Yes.
We help talk to our vendors from the point at which it's agreed between that and exchange about defective leases or issues in the lease and help trying to get it sorted, back and forth advice. They're probably just doing that before.
There's a lot more vacant properties out there for whatever reason, possibly because that's the easier way of doing things from a contractual point of view, given the issues. The other issue with it is, and it's not the same with every lender, but there is a slight problem with the fact that if you have a home report and valuation, and let's say that's said that the property you're trying to sell is worth £300,000, particularly with first-time buyers who have 5-10% deposits. Let's say, for example, they're willing to offer 320, but actually they've only got a 10% £30,000 deposit. They cannot always get the lender to agree to the 320 offer because quite often they will base it on what the home report says. Bearing in mind this is before it's been open market tested as well. And it's not necessarily that figure is wrong that the surveyor's given, it just isn't open market tested. So they could have 4 offers from first-time buyers at 320, all who have 10% deposits, none of whom are able to get a mortgage for that amount, and none of whom are able to get the extra 20 grand from friends, family, whatever it is. So it kind of restricts the market as well from that point of view. And there's certainly in the busier times during the Scottish market, you'll hear it from first-time buyers saying, we would have paid the extra, but the lender wouldn't give us the extra amount, whereas we don't have that problem down here. If we've got something on at 300 and it goes in at 320, as long as the lender's happy with it, they'll lend the rest and the buyer puts down their 10% deposit. They don't have to find that other 20 grand to make it up.
Obviously you're allowed, if you put that on the market, you're obviously allowed to reject offers, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
I know that sounds like a crazy question, but...
Yeah.
So you could, I suppose in theory, just keep rejecting it until you got what you wanted. Or say to the buyer, I want X amount.
Yeah, but I presume the same rules apply up there. That if you do that for 3 months, it's then been on the market for 3 months, the interest levels will slow down and all the rest of it. So you're kind of playing chicken again, aren't you? With we know the best time to agree a sale is generally within the first couple of weeks of marketing because it's when it's fresh, it's new. You can negotiate on the basis that it's only been on for a week.
It's obviously a very different process. I'd be keen to know, whether people miss their closing dates. What happens if you don't get your offers by that date? I mean, when do you set that? 3 weeks, 3 months, or what? It's questions we don't have the answer for at the moment, Jack, but maybe we'll...
One thing it does sound like maybe is possibly better up there or quicker is obviously the time it takes here.
Yeah.
So in 2022, the average time from a completion to from when it went under offer to completion was 160 days, just over 160 days, which is essentially just over 5 months. Why does that take? For people that don't know, why does that take so long, and who's responsible?
It's never normally taken that long. It's normally always been 3 months. 12 weeks is the average. That's what you'd ever say to a client. Maybe 12 up to 16 weeks if you're getting a long chain or something that has issues in it. And
pre-COVID. Pre-2020.
Yeah. So kind of, I guess, the mads of the last couple of years. And I don't know. I mean, there are just multiple reasons, really. I mean, the volume of instructions or the volume of transactions that we're going through obviously create more workload for solicitors, for lenders. So naturally, it's going to be a slower response time to get those answers back. I think from the few solicitors that we work with and have spoken to, I guess, more personally, is that, a lot of them used to work in an office with a team of 6 or 7, 8 assistants around them, all working quite efficiently. You'd be able to talk to each other across the room. And everyone gets sent home and starts working at home. And all of a sudden... we've said it before, like, I hate working at home. I want to be in an office with the calls bouncing around me so I know who's where, what's going on. And, and when you've got a solicitor at home and assistants are in different homes, and there's just the efficiency's not there. Things break down. I don't think solicitors ever really got back to probably their full strength teams. until maybe more recently, when if you maybe trialed 12, 18 months worth of reduced teams thinking it could be done, or working at home more frequently. I certainly know one assist we use quite closely. They were working home. They're all back in the office and have the team around them. So I think just that kind of working at home doesn't work in an intense environment where you need things done that quickly because you need to have communication between people. The sheer volume of transactions going through that, I don't think, is nothing more obvious than when you're selling, or I don't know, when the transactions are twice as much as normal, you're going to see a huge, drop in efficiency. It just can't be matched. Particularly with lenders, because we were seeing turnaround times in a more normal time, pre-COVID, you'd have seen buyers putting in mortgage applications within a day or two of having their offer accepted. The valuation would be booked the following week by the lender and their surveyor. Surveyor would come out, mortgage offer would be issued. So 10 days really from start to finish. We were seeing 4, 5, 6 weeks before you were even getting surveys. We had some sales would run 3.5, 4 months, and mortgage offer wouldn't come into the end. It used to be the quickest thing, and it was becoming the slowest thing. We don't have mortgage offers, you don't know if you can purchase it, which then started a whole other rigmarole of issues with solicitors not wanting to do any work unless the client can afford to buy it, because why waste the time? And then all of a sudden you wait 3 months for a mortgage offer, and then they'll start the process. We actually had a sale fall through specifically because the solicitor refused to do any work or to searches, do anything until they had a mortgage offer. It took 4.5 months to get a mortgage offer. Then she started, and the sale ended up falling through because the buyer would start to have different faults inside a 4.5 month window. All got a bit too, kind of scatty from them. So efficiency was the main thing, really. Some of that will speed up now that I guess transactions are at a more normal level. We've certainly seen it. I mean, we've had stuff that's gone through, agreed in December and already completed. Back to us, and far easier to get hold of people again, solicitors and brokers, lenders. So I think that would be my.
Yeah, I think agents have got to take some responsibility as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the processes. I think, and I'm not tarnishing all of them with the same brush, but there's definitely more work that could be done by agents in terms of in the initial instructions, like we mentioned earlier, with the ones that get property information forms completed, to make sure that they've actually got concise information, because it just saves time, doesn't it? If buyers are given all the information in advance of making an offer on somewhere, or as much of the information as is reasonable, you're kind of not halfway there, but
you've got a step ahead.
Exactly. You've got a head start on things. Maybe you save yourself 3 or 4 weeks because you've made sure that they know what the lease length is, any issues, any history on the property, if there's been subsidence issues and all the rest of it. So they know that in advance rather than finding out 6 weeks down the line and then there's a whole hoo-ha over it because they didn't know about it at the time of offering. So I do think some agents could be better. But actually, I have to say, I do think some solicitors could also improve. I think one of the biggest issues that came out of coming back after the pandemic was the solicitors in particular that are sort of based out of London and use one solicitor and a team of 10, 20 paralegals. I mean, you get nowhere fast with that kind of service, where how on earth can anyone take on board that amount of work? Even if you have got paralegals doing an awful lot of it for you, you still, as the solicitor, will have to review every single one of those files in detail to make sure that people haven't messed up. And the other thing that drives me mad that I feel like we're starting to see more and more is this one-upmanship between solicitors, where one of them's trying to make a point and the other one's trying to make a point. I think what I see is actually the service to the client is no longer their priority. It's about, I'm the one who knows more than you. And I think that's really disappointing for our industry, is that this seems to become the way that people are acting, is trying to prove that one knows more than the other.
Well, before, the solicitor would call each other on the phone, they'd hash it out, they'd sort it out, they'd meet your mutual decision and you'd move forward in years gone by. Now it's all on email and no one will talk to each other. So people just, once they've made a stance, that's it. It's not.
We get copied into it, and it takes 2 weeks of this backwards and forwards of the pair of them just attacking each other.
With the one I've got now, where one solicitor's no, the other's yes. I've just said to the client, look, they can argue about this for the next 2 weeks. This is not going to change because he's saying no and she's saying yes. Let's just figure the problem. Let's just figure the solution.
Surely, for people who don't know, then you'd say there must be a right answer. It must be black and white.
It's how you interpret things, though, isn't it? I mean, with a lot of things, with legal...
how can one solicitor be saying, no, that's wrong, and one solicitor saying, no, that's right?
Well, people are fighting each other's case. I mean, we have one where it's a clause within a lease, and the lease is from the 1960s, so it's not written in modern day terms, and it is subjective. You could read it one way, someone could read it another, and rather than just reaching a conclusion over it together and sort of maybe understanding where the other person's coming from, I'm saying it's not in there, and you're saying it is, and actually that's just not from that.
I find there's quite often not a lot of common sense. Would be my biggest gripe. It's more the online ones. It's a tick box, isn't it? I need
common
that.
sense doesn't always prevail.
Whereas you get a decent conveyancer, and they will actually say to the client, "Well, it actually says that, but I wouldn't worry about it." That's not. When I was buying, and we see it all the time, don't we? Well, the first flat we bought was on the 3rd floor, and it was. Sorry, it might have been when I sold it, and the conveyancer was saying it's a flood risk, and I was like, it's like. 40 metres in the air, or whatever, however tall it is. There's a river next to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure if that floods, we are all in I
think everyone's screwed.
Serious trouble. So it's just like common sense.
Yeah, but it won't. I don't think that will. I think unfortunately we're too far into a time now of everything being in writing and this sort of common sense and kind of chat between people. That's gone. I don't think it will come back.
And again, it's fairly easy for us to say, isn't it? I mean, we're not the ones who's going to get sued.
And I think that's our reason why it's changed.
Well,
I think
depends on what we do.
Too many legal issues kicked up with it, and so now it's a case of everything's keep it in writing, keep it clear, concise.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out that actually we are talking about a minority of solicitors as well. Yeah. This is just one of the issues that can affect things. The majority of solicitors actually, certainly in my experience, are okay. You've got some brilliant ones. It's like any industry, isn't it? You've got the sort of run-of-the-mill. They do a job for a reasonable fee and no one really has any real issues. But the problem is with the conveyancing side of things is that you actually need to have two pragmatic solicitors in order to progress things smoothly. You can have one who's absolutely brilliant, fantastic. But if you've got someone who's acting on the other side who is just out there to make the other person's life difficult, it doesn't matter how good the solicitor who really wants to get it done is, it's still going to be delayed. It's still going to be a painful file.
Yeah,
I'll give you guys a good example. So we had a business operations development manager, whatever they're called, walk into the office yesterday from a solicitor who I don't think we've used for 15 years on the basis of some terrible experiences. Walked through the office, touting for business. Oh, use us, we pay referral fees and all the rest of it. And I just very politely said to her, with all due respect, I won't ever be recommending you guys. I have, but
it's true that they're blacklisted, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. For £100 referral fee,
I don't want
whatever it is. I don't want the £100.
I'd rather the transactions go through.
I would like a solicitor who's actually going to service the clients and work towards a completion and actually get things done. I don't want £100 and my clients stressed
in the
out.
office, we just get, the firm that we just get the Skittles and the jelly beans always sent through from that one. Love it. I always eat them. Never call them back, but they just keep changing their business manager every 6 weeks. We just keep getting parcels through the door.
Getting more chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also there's a lot of agents who will do that, won't they? And say you take the referral because they're just so bit narrow-minded, short-minded. Oh, that's a quick £100. It's like, well, without. I know everyone thinks estate agents are greedy and all the rest. Like, you're going to make more money if that goes through as a business, as an estate agency. As
rather the transaction completes than a £50, £100 referral here. Yeah.
And you're going to make more business off the back of that. As an agent, if you sell that one, obviously somebody else might call you through their door and stuff. So
yeah.
I
was just my attitude with this industry is always whatever's going to make it easier for the clients.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, whatever decision we make, whether it's solicitor referrals, surveyors, mortgage brokers, the £50 here or the £100 there is irrelevant. It's ultimately the client that matters, and if they are going to get a good service, it just makes us seem all that much better. They suggested this mortgage broker who's brilliant. That's worth more than £100.
Yeah.
You also have to. Sorry, is it legal? You have to declare to the person that you've
got to declare referral fees.
Yeah, you have to declare referral fees.
It's just an interest in using someone, isn't it?
I'd question if anyone's.
Well, yeah, that's what when everyone ever says to us about or you.
My buyer used that firm. They were awful, obviously, and I was like, "Oh, please don't tell me they're using them. I don't want to do it." And then the guy was like, "No, there are. We
brokers.
Always recommend them."
Yeah.
Was it broker's recommendation?
It was the agent.
Oh, right. The agent they were buying, or were they buying through us?
Selling
Right.
Made the buyer use them.
Made the buyer use them. Well, not made them, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pushed them in that one. Anyway, what I take from all of that is it sounds like you both think it's broken, it needs changing, and the system doesn't work. What are the alternatives?
I think it could be improved.
I think it could be yeah, I don't think it's broken.
Yeah.
I think it could be improved. I
What's the
think maybe
alternative?
before your time, Jack, they used to have a hit pack,
Hit pack.
a
Yeah.
home information pack, which it kind of got brought in, fizzled out. That's where the EPCs first came from.
Yeah.
That was part of it, alongside
I think that's one of the quickest pieces of legislation to ever have been.
come in and go out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think genuinely vendors should have to provide a little bit more at the beginning. And I think for me, searches are one of those things because they are always a delay that happens. People, they send off them, they use third-party providers rather than going to the council. You're waiting. Well, at the moment, we've got some waiting 4, 5, 6 weeks to be returned. I just think maybe some of that up front, as James was saying earlier, just about sort of getting one step ahead. You know, we do property information forms. We try to get as much information as possible, but just getting the vendor a little bit, I don't know, yeah, providing the buyer some stuff. I think going to the full length of all these surveys and stuff, I'd agree with you about if you're going to say to a vendor, you know, you want to try and sell, but it's going to cost you £700 to get going, a lot of them are going to be like, do you know what, sod it, we'll just stay. Whereas actually, I'd rather some vendors look at the opportunity and all of a sudden they sell, they find, and great, there you go. A little bit more information at the beginning, possibly just to, yeah, I guess just to try and sort of get that step ahead. And then whether or not there's even some sort of guidance around, you know, timeframes and when things should be completed. It's a hard thing to put because, again, things can change so much, but yeah, I don't know, some sort of time constraints on things being done. How you'd implement that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult one. I think more so like if vendors didn't get searches, the biggest gripe we have is that solicitors choosing to use third-party providers for searches rather than going to the council. Go to the council, you get them in 10 working days at the moment in our borough. Third-party provider, we're waiting 6 weeks. And actually that's for no reason other than they're either trying to save some costs or they're just palming them off for a quick kind of, you know, we'll get them to do it. And actually, maybe there should be, you know, they have to be done inside 2 weeks, or this needs to be done then. Just something to keep the wheel, you know, keep it ticking over.
Yeah, I think it's something that might change as, I don't want to say technology improves because the technology is there, but as the authorities actually become more tech savvy, perhaps it's something that will improve. Because the problem with the searches is, let's say you want to sell now and it's February, right? And you order your searches now, ready to go on the market. What happens if it takes you 6 months to sell?
Outdated.
You know, right. Yeah. So there are problems that need to be looked at that I think we don't necessarily have the answers for right now because the technology just isn't there to kind of click a button and have the searches. Well, the local authority search, for example, the information that's in there, actually, the majority of it is now digital.
It's all there on the planning portal and stuff, right? It could just be pulled through.
Exactly. So why does that require a manual
Should be a live
person
system,
to assist with actually getting that search out? Because the information's there in a database. So all that needs implementing is some sort of communication between point A and point B. You press a button and ultimately, right, that's what's happening right now that's relevant to that property. In the same way, you can do a flood risk search straight away. You put the postcode in, bop, up it comes. Radon, bop, up it comes. You know, planning. If you want to do it yourself, you put the postcode in, up it comes. So I think it would be helpful if actually that was looked at and improved. And then exactly what you said, Alex, I think is hit the nail on the head, which is a little bit more information up front to ensure that actually buyers can make an informed decision from the get-go rather than having to find out some of these things down the line. And I do think things like, I mean, we always ask in the property questionnaire, but we still have it now where you'll have on the questionnaire, have you had any issues with subsidence, Japanese knotweed, you know, all the big things that we know are going to cause a problem. And the vendor ticks no. Like, oh, well, yeah, we had a problem, but we had it dealt with, so it's not a problem anymore.
Someone got sued for that the other day, didn't they? Japanese
right, yeah. And that's not what the question is. The question is, have you had a problem? Not if you've had a problem and dealt with it, don't worry about it. And it's, unfortunately, this is the issue with it, is trying to get that clear, concise information and every single time.
So almost like a law society form, but just for like the pre-marketing form. And everyone has to fill out the same thing. Because if we do it, that's fine. But then if you've got a vendor buying in a chain and no one else has done it, that's where you see problems because people come across information they've not been given.
Yeah.
So
And I think if that's formatted as a system that all estate agents have to use, it makes it far easier for buyers as well, because they just get handed the exact same property information form from every estate agent they've been to see
yeah, it's
on
just
whatever
the same.
property.
And you get used to it then.
They know what it looks like. They know the bits that they need to read through. It's
Could be downloadable off Rightmove like an EPC is, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
public information.
And I think that would do a huge amount.
I guess the only problem with that I would say, with the
Go on.
wincing that you give me. Well, we did a property misdescriptions seminar once, and the lady was saying that you should tell someone before they even go on a viewing that, I don't know, something was wrong. And so someone was saying, well, surely you just have that discussion when you get in the property, right? Because they might get in there, love the place, and then and they go, okay, I'll make an exception for that. The same way as now chucking a lease or the service charge on the summary, you can actually put people if they've even got there.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with all of that. I'd say
Well, the problem is every
there's no
property's
human
had a
element
history,
then.
hasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
There's no human element. You might get somebody who's like, they look at it straight away. You see it a little bit now where you have to display, so on all of our listings, it's got obviously ground rent, lease, if it's a lease, ground rent, service charge, leasehold. On those, some people see it's under 100 years, and for whatever reason, they won't even view it. So if you have that digital already, you might not have that human element where you're like, oh, look, it had subsidence? You just tick, yeah, somebody sees that and goes, whoa, it had subsidence. Or it's
All right, maybe it's not downloadable. Right? Maybe that was a poor suggestion by me. Yeah, maybe it's just kept in-house.
With the Scottish system, the information is given at the point that someone wants to offer. So in terms of how they do it, I think you've got 9 days to provide them with that initial home report and all the information if someone requests it. So I think
do the viewing, get it out to them.
Yeah, coming back to, is that level of information relevant to someone if they're not even interested in the property? No, why would it be? What relevance is it? But if someone's interested, I think at that point, to be able to disclose all the information, and I'm not saying that you just ping it over to them in an email and like, get on with it. We're estate agents. Our job should be talk through it. Just so you know, this is what this means. This is what that means. And explain to them whether or not it is going to be a big issue, whether it's an issue that's been resolved, whether it's a common issue, damp in older buildings. Every older building we see has got damp in it pretty much. So the fact that it might be the first Victorian building they viewed and damp's a bit scary to them doesn't mean that actually it's the end of the world, because if they want to buy a Victorian property, damp is an issue that they're probably going to have to deal with. Yeah. But if it's the first time you're reading it, it's helpful to have someone actually talking you through that.
And listen back to episode 6 if you want a bit more information on damp and mold.
Good point.
So just quickly, I know we're kind of going on a little bit now. What if you could shake a magic wand, wave a magic wand, wave a magic wand. What and you can make 2 or 3 changes just quickly. What would there a couple that you could rattle off?
Regulation in some form, just regulation on agents, so everyone sort of adheres to a certain level of practice, whether that's property information forms, this kind of thing, just some sort of regulation around it. I think would be one of the easiest ways to do it.
Yeah, I think the conveyancing process should probably be looked at. A standard set of inquiries agreed.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah,
between lenders. A
format of what's going to be. Yeah,
absolutely, of what is and isn't a problem.
Every property is individual.
No, for sure. But there should be a standard set of inquiries that should be asked.
Oh, right.
And actually anything outside of that needs to be discussed separately. But the problem is always, kind of coming back to delays, is the solicitor saying, oh, well, I've had to send an inquiry over to the lender, because they just don't know the answer, because every lender's got these different rules. I think much like going back to the EWS stuff from a couple of episodes ago, the lenders actually, UK Finance, sat down with RICS and with I can't remember the other group's name, but the 3 of them sat down together, discussed what the issue was, thrashed it out, and went, how are we going to move forward?
There's the
guidance. So it can happen.
Yeah.
And I think ideally that would be probably the single best thing that is doable at the moment, is for them to all get in a room together and go, right, let's come up with a standard format of inquiries that we're all going to agree to, because we know that this is the low risk issues, and actually anything outside of that will be looked at in a separate way. That's what I would like to see. And I think that makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Fair enough. I'm sure Michael Gove listens, so he can... He's the housing... What's his...
You don't even know
Minister
who
of
he is,
Levelling
but you're
Up.
quoting him.
The exact title, I don't know. They change every week, don't they?
I don't know, yeah.
but let's not get into
He
politics.
might be sacked by the time this comes out.
Politics and property is not a good mix. Never talk about politics at work, they say. So just to sort of summarise before we finish up, and it's been feels like a bit of a longer one than usual. The system isn't completely broken, but a few changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you need, basically that in a nutshell.
I think improvements would be helpful.
Cool. Anything you'd like to
Yeah,
add?
I've just got one question because it's something that you were saying at the beginning part about doing a RIC survey on behalf of someone and declaring whether it's a management interest or not. So we have a buyer that is a RICS chartered surveyor.
Mm-hmm.
Could he do his own survey?
Yeah, it's up to him.
Really? That's his...
But it's for himself.
Obviously.
Yeah, no, not really, because my point was, well, hold on a minute, if he goes in there and just absolutely rips it to shreds and then says, great, I want to negotiate now, all these problems.
Yeah, and you'd go...
But he wouldn't be able to do that.
Because you would say...
Well, this was what I said.
But
weighing up the management risk, Jack.
I don't... There might be some lunatic out there that would do it, but I don't know any surveyor that would walk into a property that they're purchasing and actually do a survey.
So funny,
for
of
themselves.
everyone that
Surely
we've
you must
sold
be doing
to...
it in your head, though.
You do it in your head. You walk around, you look at... So there are generally just 3 core issues that you're looking for as a surveyor that are the am I going to buy this or not? And as long as you kind of look at those, the rest of it, you just kind of go, well, I'm going to have to spend a bit of money doing this, going to have to spend a bit of money doing that.
I mean, the surveyors we sold properties to have all gone through nice and swiftly. Like Dad was a surveyor, we're selling one now, a young chap. He's a structural engineer, actually.
We're nice
he was saying, I
people.
know what... Yeah, well, that's subjective. Yeah. Okay, fine, cool. It was a
Like
question for you. It was
everything
something
in
that we were
this
discussing.
industry,
It was something we
subjective.
discussed in the office and with the vendor as to whether or not they'd be happy with that, given the information that a lot. But I think sometimes it's almost then harder for them to negotiate because they are a surveyor, so they should have
Basically.
taken more note at the beginning.
Basically.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not like they don't know what they're looking at.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Manageable risk. Thank you.
Well, I think we've overrun a little bit, so we might save the listener question for next week. Join us again next week.
Next week?
Yeah, join us again next week, where it will be the series finale, where I think we'll be having lots of fun and doing a little recap. So, yeah, join us then.